Hey, my friend, welcome back to the MindShift Podcast. I'm super excited to have you here. Listen, today you're going to get to hear from Matt Levenhagen. Matt is the founder of Unified Web Design, and he's built a team that provides web design and development services for businesses of all sizes. He started building websites, though, about 20 years ago. Did I just say that wrong again?
No, that's it. That's right.
Okay, it was 20 years ago. God, I get the company name. Sorry, Matt, Leah, we'll scratch that too. So you started building websites about 20 years ago, started the agency though in 2019.
Right. Yes.
Got it.
Built my first website 20 years ago for myself.
Got it. Okay. All right. For some reason, I switched up my notes. All right, we'll try it again. Leah, round 3. Or whoever's on Leah's team. Thank you. Appreciate you guys with your editing capabilities. You're fantastic. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the MindShift Podcast. I'm your host, Darrell Evans. Listen, today I have a great conversation coming up with you with Matt Levenhagen. Matt built his first website over 2 decades ago. He has done everything from affiliate marketing to selling his own digital products to then starting his own web design agency called Unified Web Design back in 2019. And he has now built a team for web design and development services for businesses of all sizes. Matt's team's specialty is WordPress, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. And he is now one of the sought after developers out here in the world today in the industry. When you have that many years experience, you must know what you're doing. He also shares his knowledge and experience. He also shares his knowledge and experiences on his podcast called the Builders Podcast. And he blogs at mattlevenhagen.com or the ML blog. Matt, I'm excited to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Good to be here, Darrell. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to see where this goes.
What was the number one challenge you had when you first started your business?
The web design agency?
Yeah, let's talk about the web design agency. Because you've had obviously a rich journey over 20 years. Anytime I'm talking to someone with 20 years experience online or more, it's almost like, where's the extra gray hair in digital years, right? It's like dog years, 20 years online.
Yeah. Right,
let's go to 2019 and talk about the startup of your agency, because a lot of our listeners are entrepreneurs and they're in early stages of their business to mid stages. What was one of the biggest challenges?
I think the biggest challenge was I knew I wanted to start an agency. And I knew what my experience was, what my skill set was, what my craft was. But I didn't have a clear vertical to go after or anything really defined, right? I was kind of, okay, I want to build an agency. I knew I wanted to do web design, development. WordPress was my thing. I'd, been doing it forever. And so it was, where am I going to find people? Where am I going to find my first clients, my first projects? And also, I guess I didn't know who I was targeting. So it was just going after everybody. And so that was the hardest thing in the beginning, was just not knowing what I was doing, in terms of a market or who I was targeting and what kind of business I was going to get. So I was just going to get whatever I could get.
Yeah. How did you narrow in your focus on your target market?
Well, it took the first year or two. In the beginning, I knew I was going after WordPress. I knew I was going to be designing and building WordPress sites. That was going to be the focus because I had built themes from the ground up. I built frameworks, my own boilerplate. I knew the code inside and out, line by line. I knew it inside out. So I knew that's what I would be doing. And I like to design. I like to do the whole thing. And so in the beginning, it was trying to go after those type of projects or just to help with WordPress sites, building stuff. And through as I went through, I started to get these projects, and some of it was just going to Upwork. So I'm kind of like, when I had started out, when I was freelancing before the agency years ago, I was on Elance, and that's where I got a lot of my first experience doing web development stuff. Freelancer is no longer. I think they got absorbed into Upwork.
Yep.
But that's actually, so I just naturally gravitated there. But I also started to get referrals and stuff because I know people in the industry and they knew what I was doing. I shouted it from the rooftops, let everyone know what I was doing. And so I'd get a little thing here and there. And then through that, though, is just as I was getting projects, I started to see patterns, like the type of people I was getting and helping, how I could help. And when I started to actually realize I was working with other agencies, partnering with them to either build themes for them or help them with WordPress or with their client sites and stuff, I realized there was an opportunity there. I was listening to their problems, what their pain points were. I'm like, I can solve those. I can do that. So that's kind of how it developed. It was just, in the beginning, it was very messy. It was just trying everything I could and just listening and seeing what I was doing, and then trying to figure out where those patterns were and defining that, narrowing what we were doing till I found that first kind of vertical, which was pretty much agencies, to go after. So,
Oh,
yeah.
I love that. Thanks for bringing that to light, right? You didn't know. You're like, let me just tell everybody. Let me figure out
Mm-hmm.
what's happening out here in the I just know I've been building websites for a long time. I've got some skill, I've got some expertise. I know how to build it from the ground up, including themes. And for those that are not familiar with the building of themes, because I'm a user of themes over the last decade and a half, that means the code, PHP, the whole bit, right?
Yeah.
But then I liked how you said, I started listening to the problems. And it's a key point, I started listening to what the market was telling me and who was sort of speaking out loud about their problems. And so you narrowed in on agency. And of course, I own an agency. So that is near and dear to my heart as well. And I can tell you, I can't wait till we dive into some of the more complex things that I think we're going to get into related to systems and processes and teams, which I think everyone's going to benefit from, whether you run a web design or digital marketing agency or not. I got to ask this question though. What was the triggering event? What was going on in your life that made you say, I need to start my own business in whether it's an agency or not? But what was it that pushed you to say, I'm going to start my own business?
Well, I've always been interested in business since as long as I can remember. I wasn't one of those guys that the stories with entrepreneurs, they were like selling things when they were like 5 years old on the street or something. I wasn't that guy that was like this natural born entrepreneur, but I always liked the idea of business, building something. I like building things, I guess. So it was like in early 90s, my first business was actually an art business. I tried to be an artist for like a half a dozen years. And so I was painting on canvas and having shows and doing commission work. And so I kind of got my taste there. Now, I wasn't doing it. I guess I was doing it because I wanted to be an artist, but with that, it's also a business. So that kind of went hand in hand. And from there, I realized after I decided not to be a struggling artist anymore, I decided I really like business. So I went back to school and took business classes. And that led me to eventually I started work for an insurance agency with a gentleman, David. And I worked for about 6 months. We were Allstate. And at some point, we started this conversation around starting an independent agency and doing it together. And for the next few years, I helped kind of build this agency. And over time, though, I left there and I did other things. I did contracting. I started another little agency for insurance, my own agency. And then I found the internet. So in the internet was like, oh, what business am I going to build? So all through, there's this pattern, right?
Blank canvas.
So I don't know if like in my 20s and stuff, like I worked for restaurants. I was a bartender for years to support my, struggling artist days. So I worked for others, but I always wanted to work for myself. And it's something that I guess is innate kind of in me.
Nice, nice. In your work today, you have a team and web design. For those that don't know, there are platforms today that will put a template in front of you, and no knock to these platforms, but for example, Wix, you sign up for a Wix account, and they can give you 15 different layouts where all you have to do is take the same 5 widgeted areas and drop a few pieces of text in, um, choose to change the image or not, and you can have a site up in an hour. But that's not what you do. That's not those websites don't tend to be what we think of as websites for growth and brand reputation and things of that nature for marketing. Um, how and I want to get into the team building, because I think web design and web development is one of the toughest things to do, but they are so required. Like, people throw the word, let me go build a website, like it's, go into the grocery store. What, from your perspective, and then I want to dive into building team and systems and processes, because it's one of those things that drives me bananas. I'm of all the things we do in an agency, I don't love what you do. I don't love I don't want to say I don't love the department. I mean, it's a necessary evil, but I'm so like, just get the site done so we can start driving leads and growing customers.
Right.
Like, don't talk to me about a website design. I don't want to talk about it anyway. But what is it that the average person doesn't understand about the difference between a website that you would build, whether it's custom or from a theme? I really want to ask you about why you build themes. That's kind of an interesting topic as well, but we'll come back to that. But what don't people understand in terms of the differences between someone building something on Wix, for example, versus WordPress, and maybe something even custom in that environment?
Yeah. So, the first thing that comes to mind is just, I've always, and this is in a lot of different contexts online, where you want to own your content, you want to own your property, and anytime you have content or anything on a third party, um, who owns that, or who owns the infrastructure, who has control of that, and what changes are they going to make that is going to derail you, or they're going to go out of business. You don't know. Even Wix could go out of business someday. Bigger businesses have gone out of business. Then what happens? And you have, or they're hacked, or something happens that, and you have less control in general. Even like Shopify and stuff, where you can put an e-commerce store there. You can do some stuff with it. You can do some custom work and things like that. But at the same time, it's on another company's, in their world, and so you're kind of dependent on that. And I think one of the it's one an interesting. I don't know if this is going to really tie into this real well. I've never thought of this before, but when I was in high school, I was actually I really wanted to become an architect, right? And so I was in, like, my senior year in high school, I was like in the drafting room for 3 hours a day, advanced drafting 2 and 3 in my study hall. I spent all my time drafting, and I ended up being an artist because the thing I didn't like about architecture was all the rules and regulations. And I wanted to break out of that and just do whatever I wanted to do.
Right.
And that's the other reason that I think I gravitate to building things custom, is because I can build them the way I want to build them, and only what I need to build. There's with less bloat, better performance, everything else, and there's no limitations. And so I don't have to. If I go to Shopify, I know there's things I'm not going to be able to do to that website, because it's on this platform. And it's going to be the same for Wix, probably harder. Or
yes.
Your other ones out there, Squarespace or whatever.
Yeah, we're a HubSpot agency, so we build on HubSpot. So yeah,
HubSpot. So there is a reason to do those things, and sometimes I have recommended people to do that, even Wix, if maybe they don't have the budget or whatever, because there's that aspect of this too.
Certainly.
But for me, as a web developer and as somebody that's been building sites, I like to build things kind of purpose built, right? We're building it for what they need. And a lot of times, a lot of our clients have very unique needs that require some hacking to do, or special integrations and things that they're trying to accomplish and integrate with their site that would be really, really difficult to do on another platform. So,
Makes sense.
yeah.
So you've been building websites for 20 years. You start your company were you a solopreneur when you started, or did you hire a team right out of the gate?
In the first 2 years, roughly, I was solo to the point, but I did have contractors that would help me out.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of I knew other developers and stuff, and we kind of help each other out. Actually, it's kind of back and forth. And so if I needed help on a project, I could bring somebody in or work parallel on something. And the workload wasn't to a point where I needed a team at that point yet. But after year 2, that changed. So.
Gotcha. How many people do you have on your team now?
10, technically.
Can you talk about the roles? Can you talk about the roles of what a 10-person team looks like? I think that'd be very helpful for those that may be a little bit, maybe they've got one or a couple people on their team, but can you share a little bit about how the role structure is with the 10?
Yeah, mine kind of organically developed as I needed different things over time. Like my first hire was actually a web developer, front-end web developer, because it was actually, all of this is contract driven or like client driven, right? I had a client that they wanted us to help them with the front end stuff. They were good at the back end. They were good at digital marketing company. They did all that. They didn't want to manage a creative team or a front end team. So we came in to help, and we decided to put a dedicated resource on for them. So I found somebody. They paid me to actually go out and find that person, and then over 2 years later, she's still there, which is awesome. But so I had her, and then the next one was a VA, because right soon after, the next couple months, I was starting to get to a point where I was like, I was starting to juggle too much. I was losing track of things. I couldn't do everything I wanted to do. So I got a VA, virtual assistant. I kind of established her early on to help me with the marketing side too, because that was kind of how I was going to. I wanted to tie her to revenue a little bit there, So if I was I didn't want her just answer emails for me. I wanted there to be some kind of impact on the revenue side. And so she was helping me with direct email and get me in front of people and closing some deals. And she's done marvelous since. She's still with me as well. So from there, thanks. Sometimes I feel lucky. Like, I don't know, sometimes
I completely get that. I just did an episode about how to hire a virtual assistant. If you're listening to this right now, an executive assistant, whether they're virtual or not, an executive assistant is happens to mine is virtual as well. And I just produced an episode a few weeks ago, and I'm like, I don't know at this point what I would do without her. It's so key. If you're an entrepreneur and you don't have a big team today, you've got to get your eyes and hands off of those things that are not your highest and best gift. And let that person who has that gift help you with those things. So, yeah.
And it's even just, where do you want to spend your time? Where's the most value in what you're doing? And
it's a moving target, right? I mean,
right.
I think it actually makes me want to go into this question here, and that is, it takes a lot to build a website. Meaning, there's a lot of steps, there's a lot of processes and systems and things like that. If you want to finish out the build of your team, but then let's go into the steps, because I think you've got a lot to share, and you've got a perspective where you handle a complex process and with multiple people. And I think and then you do it for agencies as your customer, which means you're not working directly with the end customer in all scenarios. And I think there's a lot to unpack here as we continue. Yeah. But so let's start with the rest of your team, how that might look like, and then let's move into.
Yeah, I'll go a little faster. I could talk about each one individually in the whole hiring process.
Yeah, just give us a high level idea. Like, I got 3 people that do this. I got 2 people that do that.
Okay. So from there though, I hired another developer. She actually turned out to be my designer. I found out she had a skill she didn't have, or I didn't say up front. So she's actually my designer now, mostly. And then a couple more developers, I started to need really back-end developers, or people that were very versatile, full stack. So I have 3 or 4 of those. I have a front end. I have, and I just hired a QA analyst
Yeah.
because we were starting to get into. We were doing a lot of quality assurance on the dev side, and just randomly, and we needed to have somebody dedicated to that.
Yeah. So I just want to stop right there, Matt, just because I want to go back and compare and contrast. So if you're an entrepreneur, listen to this, or you're an executive CEO founder, and you go to talk to a web development company and you find out the quote is $25,000 for your website, and you think it's only 8 pages, and then you wonder why Wix can do it for whatever, $25 a month, you just heard him say front end developer, back end developer, designer, and now a person for QA, quality assurance, quality control. Those are the differences. And that's the difference. So people get misunderstood about what they're buying when they buy Wix or Squarespace. Nothing wrong with the platforms, but you have limitations. And so when you buy a template that's just there, you don't get design control. You can't make changes to the design. You don't get access to the code. You don't get access to the functionality. You can't have a developer go in and change it. Matt, for those listening who don't know, could you do me a favor? Help us out with what's the difference between a designer who you said you hired a developer, found out she had design skills. Can you just break down those stages of thought process and talent? What's the difference between a designer who may not be a front end developer, and then compare and contrast a back end developer? And then what is this person's skills that can do QA? I think it'd be interesting because, you know, a lot of people don't get it. Like just going to shop out a website and they wonder, whoa, this website's $2,000. The other person said 22 grand. What's the difference? So what are these people doing?
Right. So the designer is, and it's important to me. Actually, it was a really big asset for me to have a designer that had web development experience, and front end experience, because so a designer is actually designing the website. So we will work with the client to figure out what, their brand, if they may have brand information for us, they may have brand, they have a logo, they have all that stuff, their colors, the typography they want. So we take what they have, or we come up with new things, new design elements, and we create the design for the website in Photoshop or Adobe XD or there's whatever is needed for that project, and so she's doing that. She's actually doing the creative side of it. We have the whole discovery process. We might wireframe it, which is just a rough layout and just figuring out the UX and all that. And then we create a mock-up that's just going to be as close to that final website we're trying to get to, right? So it's all graphically done first. And then the front-end developer will now come in and translate that design into code, essentially. So we're a WordPress theme. So we have an in-house kind of proprietary boilerplate framework we use, and translate that on there, which is going to be a WordPress block theme. We can talk about block themes today, but so that's translated and made functional on a website. The back end, so that the front end is basically, that's their job to do the translation. They may do the animations and stuff too. Things moving on the page as you scroll or whatever, and that stuff. They may set up some of the WordPress backend or admin stuff, but then or forms, and then the backend person might come in to extend the functionality. Maybe there's backend systems. Maybe it has to integrate. Maybe there's e-commerce. Maybe there's an outside third party we have to integrate with, or an API we have to integrate with, or there's database work that needs to be done. Kind of the stuff behind the scenes, behind the websites you don't see. That's your backend guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And then your QA person, what skill do they need to have?
There's a QA person. Now they're dedicated to understanding the requirements of the project, So that person is going to be helping me with, putting those requirements together, making sure there's nothing missing, making sure that uh, the whole thing's documented. And then what they do is they're going to now figure out what they need to test. So the end goal is that we're going to deliver a product or, a website to the client, or a feature, whatever we're working on, to our client or agency partner, whatever, that is as bug free as possible. We've tested it as far as we can test. Also, that we're following good standards. They're going to be responsible for putting things in place or ensuring the team is following good coding standards and all that stuff. So it's really about, it literally is about quality on even the things you don't see on the coding side, and doing what we call unit testing and automated testing, and building all that out. And we do a lot of like maintenance and stuff too. So when we do updates, we want to have that person's going to be helping out, making sure that nothing's broken when we do the updates and all that.
All the things you can't see. So a lot of people think they get a website and all they can see is they think that's all it is, right? I'd like to compare it to when we go to a restaurant and we eat. We order something off the menu and we expect it to be the plate of food that we ordered, but we don't realize what it all took to get that dish put together, especially at a fine dining restaurant, which is where I like to eat because I like to eat. And, you can eat something out of a box that has the same core items in it, and it doesn't taste quite the same. Or the frozen department don't taste quite the same as the world-class dish that you paid $100 for at the restaurant. There's a different set of steps and processes and all the things you can't see. So I appreciate you breaking that down. So Matt, my thought comes to the complexity side of it, which is the steps and the processes. So you've got all these people that are working through the process, and then there's got to be systems and processes in place to pull this all forward, because you're still trying to meet the goals and expectations of the customer. And in this case, a lot of agencies are your customers. Talk to us about the collision of how you've built good systems and processes to work with those teams. And I know that in your world like mine, you've got teams that are on staff, and then you've got people that are contracted, which means they're not directly dedicated to your payroll. And I think there's a lot of interesting insights that I think you can share there. Let's start first with how did you develop your systems and processes so that you're so efficient with what you guys do?
Yeah. So from day one, I mean, I was thinking about documentation and creating SOPs, standard operating
How many days into the business?
Day one.
Day one. Hey, for everybody listening, I stopped him on that for a reason. I'm meeting business owners. You guys are running around here selling stuff, doing stuff. You're wondering why you're overwhelmed. It don't take but a second to say, once I do it right, let's figure out what I did to get it done right. Start documenting it. Doesn't have to be fancy. Doesn't have to be in software. I just needed to augment that point because I coach and mentor a lot of, and they have none. So anyway, and I'm guilty too. I've had plenty of businesses where we didn't start from day one, but you got to know how you do it here. But anyway, go ahead and continue.
Yeah, no, I think, and we use, so we're at kind of an Atlassian shop. We have
Trello.
We use Trello and Confluence and Bitbucket. Confluence is where all our documentation lives for our teams. But I built that for myself. Like I was by myself the first couple of years, like I said.
Yeah.
And so, but one of the things that I've learned over the years, especially in the web development design realm, is that if I do something once, I want to remember, if I do that same thing 6 months or a year from now, I want to have a reference so I don't have to I'm pretty good at remembering things. I'm really good at patterns and being able to do things a second time down the road. If I do it once, I usually remember how to do it. But at the same time, there's little details and things, and it's like you don't have to think about it, and it's less stress too. It's like you got it, and so it's the steps to do things, but also even my when I'm doing a website build, when you get the design and you build that whole website or the theme and the WordPress theme or whatever, I had all that mapped out, and from the actual what pages, everything detailed, like what pages what are you going to translate first? You're going to header, footer, the front page, and then you're going to do some of the other main page templates, and then you're going to do the obscure things like the 404s and the make sure those are captured, and that's all documented. You check them out as you go, check them off as you go. Then even the testing process. This is an alpha. Now we test it. We look for bug. We test it in these browsers. All that stuff is just documented. So I had that, like I said, day one, because I used it for myself before that and stuff I had been doing. So I just kind of adapted it to my agency. So I had all that. I had my own boiler, my own code and everything. But then when I started hiring, it was like I would give that to my team and I'd give them access. And what I found is that some of it was overkill. Stuff that I had built, I was almost too detailed in some of the stuff. It was, I had to actually make it simpler for my team to understand or just go through it, or they'd have their own we'd adapt it to their way of doing things. So you got to have some flexibility in that. It's a live document. You're going to change it, different contexts, different people using it. And so I just, kind of those things. And again, as we're working with clients, a client is a certain thing, a particular, settings page or something that we do regularly. We want to make sure it's documented. So I always want to think like, even the people I hire, like I'm not hiring that person and they're going to be here forever. Same with the documentation. It's like that person that's using that documentation or that knows that stuff, isn't going to be here forever. So you want to be able to give somebody else, a new person, that, hey, go to that document. It shows everything. You can get caught up on that. I worked for a company years ago. I won't say who, but they had a particular person in that business that knew too much and nothing was documented. And it was a big deal because they wanted to make.
Say that again. That was so good.
They had somebody that had been with the company, and I don't know, at that point they were maybe in business for 8 years or something, and they had hired somebody early on that did all of the stuff. They didn't even know what she all did, and none of it was documented. So she became so critical of that business, and there was somebody that came along that was going to change that. I remember it being a whole thing, but there was you never want that to happen. You don't want all your information, your processes, everything to be in somebody's head. Or, like if I have a developer that's really good at maintaining a particular website for a client, what happens to that developer's not there tomorrow? Is that documented? Are we going to be able to just slot somebody else in? So that's one of the key things with documentation and what it does for you. It documents all the roles and what people are doing, even down from the high level to just down to the client, down to the client's website, down to some feature we're building for them, all of that. There should be we're not perfect. Sometimes you just get busy. You don't have time to document, but every time I try to think about it all the time.
Yeah. So you work with agencies and then you have outside contractors as well as your internal team. What strategies have you employed to keep all of those components working together, right? Because now you've got a customer who's not a part of your team, who then has a customer on the other side of them. Do you have some specific insights or strategies that you've developed over the years to keep all of this kind of moving in a fine-tuned way?
Yeah. So yeah, my team, so I have employees that, I manage them. They're, I hired them. They're full-time employees. And then I do have a relationship with another agency that provides me resources. So, but that whole group, whether they're employees or if they're contractors or somebody that needs to just be part-time to just work on one project or whatever, I try to treat them as one whole team. And we use Slack. We have, group channels, public channels, and we have private channels, depending on what, for projects and things. But I always try to treat them like a complete team. So even the contractors feel like they're part of the family, and I try to, include them in everything and have fun. And I have a little too much fun sometimes. Some of them are really too serious. I really gotta, I try so hard to make them laugh and stuff. But I just, and I do all the things, whether they're a contractor or not. We have, we have stand-ups. We have my employees I do one-on-ones with, not so much the contractors, but somebody else might be managing them. But I just try to keep it as one unit, and they're all working together. I do everything I can to like get them to work on different projects together or bring somebody in, so that's our side. And then as far as other agencies, if they have a team, generally speaking, it depends on the agency or the client. So sometimes I become the only point of contact, and it solves, or maybe it's a project manager that's that point of contact, and then everything flows to them, and they don't even know what our team's doing. Because we're taking, they might have their own project management system. They might send us an email. They might use our Zendesk. Wherever that's coming in, we are able to pull that into our system, and then we work on it. And then that one person is delivering it, whether that's me or, like I said, my project manager or whatever. And so that sometimes works well. There's other scenarios where I will, like one of my clients, there is more involvement with my team, where like that first front end developer I had hired, that was gold, because she's really good at communicating with the client. And so she was actually able to pick up her own tasks and put those in Trello, and she did the whole thing. I almost took her for granted for a long time, because like, she's just doing it. I don't have to do anything. But there's some lessons around that. But so right now we actually started doing more for that same client. So one of my designers helping actually design stuff now. So we're scaling up what we're doing with them, and they want to scale up. And so now I have my designer in there and my project manager. So I'm trying to get them to all work together. So it's a little unique for each relationship. It depends on who they have. Sometimes it's a client with a marketing person, or a client with a copywriter, or that's the person we're dealing with. I try to keep, like, basically my backend developers and all, the people doing the work back there don't interface with the client. Only, very specific people will interface with the client and communicate with them. And, so that's essentially it. So it's a little different for each. And it's always, that's what's fun about it for me. Like, I like solving that problem, like trying to figure out, okay, what's the best way? What systems do you use? I learned early on they're never going to use my systems. I thought, when I first started the agency, I'll just get everyone to work within my project management software and my thing. But usually companies that are established have their established ways. Like, I work with one company in Teamwork, another in Asana, another in Basecamp, so yeah.
So Matt, I've got some sort of rapid fire. No, it's all good. I think there's a lot of nuggets there. I mean, I think just to maybe summarize some of what you said is, like, from day one, start documenting, even if it is just you. And the reason for that is, what happens when someone else comes on board, and you can't be the person that you described in the example where that company had that 8-year employee who had it all in their head. Don't be that person to yourself, right? Number one. Number two, you do have less stress because you actually are giving your brain some relief. A lot of times we get in business and we start running around and we like to brag about multitasking and all this stuff. No, what you're doing is just making your brain tired, right? It's not designed to remember everything. Like, it's not quick recall. It's not for a quick recall. And so, that was another key point you made there. And then as you broke down this processes of communications and, whether it's Slack channels, private, public, and the processes throughout Trello, it all makes sense. But I wanted you to share that because some people are in a place where, you can have 10 employees and you still need to go to the next level. but it takes specificity and intention. That's what I heard you. You didn't say that word, but you were like intentional about the way, because you said I'm constantly thinking about this, right? And I think as entrepreneurs, especially small to mid-sized companies, the goal is for us to get to the place where the business can be run and grown by our team. I think that's the dream of entrepreneurship, which actually brings me to a couple of rapid fire questions as we get ready to wrap up the show. And that is, how do you define success as an entrepreneur?
Wow, that's a good question. How do I define success as an entrepreneur? I think it's it's building something that is meaningful to you, that you're passionate about, and that you're making a difference. Um, and also like as 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 I build it, like where's my goal? Where am I headed, and how do I envision myself 5 years, 10 years down the road? Is having that team that can do that. So basically giving all my roles to other people eventually, to where the business just runs, right? I do plan on selling someday and all that, 10, 20 years down the road, or 30, when I'm an old man. But yeah, that's it. But for me, it's always been everything I've done, even every business, is like about the passion, about doing something I love, that I just love showing up every day and doing my thing. But then also having an impact,
Yeah. What's one thing in your journey that almost took you out?
Whew. Yeah, I think the rough one was when I was doing internet marketing for those years in the 2000s up to about 2011, 12. And I loved what I did. I would still be doing it today if it wasn't for Google. there was
I know about this thing, but tell everybody what happened.
I'll keep it short, but it was basically, I started doing affiliate marketing, pay-per-click advertising, SEO and stuff like 2003, 4. And I turned it into a business. And I loved waking up every day and looking at my stats. What sales did I make overnight? It's just running and or what new niche did I find, or this and that. I just loved what I did. I built memberships around that, my own digital products, and was pretty successful with that. But over time, Google started tightening the reins, or whatever, however you want to say it. They started to make it more difficult to do what we were doing. And they introduced quality scores and landing pages, and then they merchants start getting on board with not liking affiliates doing some of the things we were doing, like bidding on their brand names and stuff like that, little things. So a lot changed, and I got to a point where, because I did a lot of coaching and teaching in my memberships, hundreds, 300 members at a time, thousands went through my memberships. But I got to a point where I was teaching people how to reopen their Google AdWords account under a different name because they got banned or blocked or whatever. I started to teach people how to rebound from that more than I was teaching the methods. The methods weren't working as well anymore.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, this is not sustainable. I don't want to be in a business where I'm teaching people how to do things that are going to get them banned, So the whole idea here is to help them, make money and build a business for themselves and test markets and do all the fun stuff we were doing. And so eventually, and that's why in 2012, I finally was burned out, and I had to make a pivot, and I had to really think deeply about what I'd been doing. I loved what I was doing. I tried pivoting and trying different things to counteract what was happening. But I eventually just had to, I said, you know what? I like building websites. I look back, I said, yeah, I actually spend more time tinkering with websites sometimes than the actual marketing. I just playing around, and I'm like, maybe I'll try this. I'll see if I can start doing this for other people. instead of building niche sites for myself and my business. But I think that was the big thing. It was really a pivotal moment for me I was pretty down on myself. And, I think you have so much passion for something for so long and you think it's going to last forever, and then it doesn't. And to pick yourself back up from there, it was rough for a year or two. I kind of my passion was kind of, blown out until I figured it out. And it turned it around. I got back on my horse, but yeah, that was it. That was a big moment.
Gotcha. A couple more questions. How do you stay motivated?
How do I stay motivated? Oh, well, I think, having struggled with motivation for so many years over the decades and different scenarios and contexts, I think it's just the fact that I love what I do. And also, as my business has grown, it was harder in the first year or two of this business to stay motivated and not want to just play games all day, or, not put into work, not go find business, but now my responsibility is grown to a point where I got a team. Now it's not just about me. It's about that team. It's about, and I actually have something that's working. So let's keep her going. I don't want to lose it. I'm at an age where this is kind of my last hurrah. I'm not getting any younger. I'm in my 50s now. So I think those things keep me motivated. Just every day I sit down right away at this desk and get to work, because I feel like I'm building something, and it's just, at this point, it's kind of just, the motivation is just there. And you talk about action too, just doing it, that's where you get the motivation too. You just sit down and get started.
Yeah. If your ideal customer or prospective customer was listening right now to this episode, what would you say to them that they would say to themselves, I need to talk to Matt? And then I want you to share where they can find you.
Okay. So, well, if it's whether you have a business, you just got a business, an e-commerce store or something like that, or you're an agency, right? And you're stressed out, you're having issues. Your website's having issues. You're having downtime that's affecting revenue, and you have, decent revenue, and, you're down for an hour, you're losing money, or, a day sometimes. And you're stressed out because you can't find good developers. You can't find somebody that can solve the problems you have. I have onboarded clients and agencies, clients that are a mess. They don't even know where their logins are, right? And I've had clients come to me that they had some developers trying to fix something. Like one of my favorite stories is one client that, for 3 days, these developers were trying to fix something on their homepage, like a video on their homepage, and they couldn't do it. And I came in and I fixed it like within an hour or two, and 1.5 years, 2 years later, I'm still doing work for them. Nice. So if you're stressed about the quality of work that's being done, or you're struggling, or you don't want to hire an in-house team, and you just need somebody to come in and solve that problem for you, or work with your teams, talk to me. You can go to unifiedwebdesign.com, and there's going to be either a Talk to Matt form on the bottom of one of the pages, or you just go to the contact page at the top and send a message. It'll go to my Zendesk, and one of my VAs will see that, and they'll say, hey, Matt, somebody needs some help. And they'll alert me, and I'll come in and help you out. We can jump on the best thing is just jump on a 15-minute call and just, let me know, what your pain points are, what you need. And then we'll see if we're a good fit and go from there. Otherwise, if you're interested in my content, learning more about teams, I'm going to be talking a lot more about teams and processes on my blog. That's at mattlevenhagen.com.
Awesome. We're going to link both of those up in the description wherever you are watching or listening to this show. And Matt, it's been a pleasure. Congratulations on the pivot. I mean, a lot of us don't like to talk about those stories of pivoting and, addressing the true letting go of something that we felt so strongly about, but then it's not working. Things have changed. sometimes failure can knock us out. And a lot of times, those of us that stick in the game long enough, you realize that failure is inevitable. It's just how you process it and realize where the next opportunity is. And so, fortunately, you had been doing web design for so long that even though it was a niche and affiliate work, you found a way to say, okay, this is what I really enjoy. I think that was the key of that whole dialogue, is that, you know, you stay motivated because you enjoy this. Like, you are doing what you.
Yeah. If I could add one little thing there, I turned it into my superpower, because all that experience I had before informs what I do today. I'm actually a bigger value to my client base and stuff because of that experience and understanding marketing and all that stuff. So you can turn it into a superpower too.
So for those that are familiar with the MindShift brand, you hear us talk about superstar DNA all day. So Matt he realized that over a decade of being online, he found his superstar DNA, his definite natural ability, and he dove all in. So Matt, our final question we ask everyone is, if for some reason today happened to be, and we know that we don't want this to be the case, but if today happened to be your last day on this planet, Earth, what we call home, what would you want everybody to remember you for?
Having an impact. That's it. Just having, I want to have affected somebody's life in their business in a positive way. That's it. Matt said this thing and it changed everything for us. And we're in a better spot today because we came across Matt. Something like that.
I love it. Matt, thanks so much for being here on the MindShift podcast. I'm excited about our continued association. Thank you also for hosting me on the Builders podcast, which we can link up. And if those listening would like to go check that out, Matt's show is fantastic. Again, the Builders podcast, wherever you're listening to the MindShift podcast, you can find that show. And I'd encourage you to follow that show, whether you're in the web development or design or agency space or not. I think you're going to learn that a lot of us podcasters, we really are just opening a platform to not only share our own stories, but to also highlight the stories of others. And what I've noticed over 3.5 years now of running this show is that we all go through the same things in our own unique way. And something that I've gone through, maybe you don't resonate with, but something that Matt went through in this dialogue today, you will resonate with, and it'll be the thing that turns everything around. So again, Matt, thank you so much for being on the show. And for those listening or watching, wherever you're watching, if you've enjoyed today's conversation, I'd invite you to hit the follow button. That is the new thing now to do. It's the follow button. If you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. And if you happen to be out on a platform where you can hit like, comment, or share, I'd invite you to do whichever you are inclined to do based on your level of motivation at this point. If you have never met me, my name is Darrell Evans. I am I'm the host of this show, the MindShift Podcast, and I'm the co-founder, CEO of a digital marketing agency based here in Las Vegas, Nevada called Yokel Local. And I also have a very special private entrepreneurial group on Facebook called Growth Driven Entrepreneurs. You can visit us and join the group and join one of our next live trainings at growthdrivenentrepreneur.com. Matt, thanks again for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We'll see everybody next time. Hey, it's Darrell Evans. Hit the subscribe button so you can become a part of the MindShift community. We'll help you shift your mind so you can shift your results.